So I want to talk with you about computers, music, and people, and how all of those play together. But really what I want to do is, by the end, kind of invite everyone to join me in pondering and imagining possibilities. Before we get there, I'm going to start at a beginning, and that beginning is actually my own. I was born in Beijing, and I grew up with my grandparents. My grandmother loved Beijing opera, and I grew up listening to that. And then I also grew up listening to Western classical music, which my grandfather loved. In fact, he had a catalog of 350 audio cassettes, all of which he created by actually taping the local radio station. Understand, that was really in the early 80s, like the only way you can get classical Western classical music in China. And so he carefully cataloged all of these things, and there's a cabinet filled with audio cassettes. In some sense, that was kind of his iTunes library. He could say, well, I want to listen to Prokofiev, Classical Symphony, Movement 4, and he would say, and the catalog would tell him, it's on cassette 217, side B, about halfway through. And they got me my first instrument, which was an accordion. The accordion somehow, a few years later, transmutated into a electric guitar. And by that time, I was already in the United States, and my parents were the ones who somehow gave me the electric guitar. I guess they figured at least it wasn't a drum set. So, and that's kind of where I really began realizing just how much I loved making music, but also how such a human and such a social activity music making can be. I went on to actually study computer science in undergrad as well as music. Most of the time in undergrad, not realizing I could actually combine those two into kind of one single thing. But that is actually what I did in graduate school. I was in computer science, but also working with music. And that kind of leads me to where I work now, which is actually pictured here. This is Stanford University's Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics. That's abbreviated CCRMA, and is pronounced KARMA. It's the intersection of computer science, signal processing, psychology, and of course, all in the service of music and people. And computers, as far as I'm concerned for music, has always been attractive for their programmability, precision, and possibility for fantastical automations. This IBM 360 was actually one of the models of computers back in the day I never got a chance to use. They actually were used to produce and create music. Among the many things we work on is the following. This is a laptop orchestra. Pictured here is the Princeton Laptop Orchestra. The name is Florrick. And there's one at Stanford, perhaps appropriately named Slork, or perhaps inappropriately. And this is actually founded by two of my mentors, Dan Truman, music professor, fiddler extraordinaire, and my PhD advisor, Perry Cook. And the idea behind the laptop orchestra is to really explore the computer as a musical instrument, but also to do so as an ensemble. To help us, we actually use this new technology, but also kind of borrow something from traditional chamber music, and that's how sound is actually propagated. So we have these special hemispherical speaker arrays, each of which is paired with a laptop and a performer, and the idea is that the sound will come from the vicinity of the laptop, and rather than from a PA system that surrounds you. And the idea is that, well, if you're to play a violin, the sound comes naturally from the artifact and doesn't really go from anywhere else. And this is, in some sense, trying to provide the same sonic intimacy for each instrument. And by the way, we built these at Stanford out of IKEA salad bowls. So this is a 12-inch Blanda mat, for those of you who want to build one of these yourself. You turn it upside down, you drill 6 holes in it, round it, cut out a bottom plate, put 6 car speaker drivers in it. These are 4-inch drivers, and some amplifiers, and have a lot of wonderful people actually design and work on this. Add laptops, add people, and voila, we have a laptop orchestra. And it's kind of a proto or a pre-orchestra in the sense that the sound of the orchestra and the rules of traditional orchestration get to be reinvented, for better or for worse, every time you have a new piece. And that is the flexibility afforded to us by such an ensemble made of laptops and people. And sometimes we hook up traditional music controllers. More often than not, we make our own. And sometimes we hook up gaming controllers to make music. I'm going to try to demonstrate one such instrument right now. And this is an instrument called Joy of Chant. It's going to use this joystick here, and there we go. It's just a regular joystick, and when you squeeze the trigger, it's going to emit this sound. Now that sounds like a pretty vocal sound, but that's also not a very realistic human sound. You can say at least that's a computer trying to sing. Now, by moving the joystick to different corners, it's going to sing different vowels, and it's going to interpolate depending on where I move it. It's kind of like putting your fingers and hands in someone's throat and vocal cavity and slightly, twisting it so. If you twist the joystick, you get vibrato. Controls volume. Because this is a software model, we can actually swap out the source but keep the vowels, so we can make it breathe. Okay, and then you can hook up something to the keyboard to make it sing. I just press the keys, Z, C, B, A, D, G, W, E. You can make it sing pretty low. Or pretty high. And you can sing little ditties with this. For example. Thank you. So that's one of many instruments, and I think the one thing it demonstrates is that sometimes in the right conditions, being able to be expressive with something is almost as important, if not more so, than actually having the computer be fully realistic. And with all this technology, it's actually good to actually think about not the technology, but what they afford. So this quote really captures it pretty well. This is from HCI researcher Ben Schneiderman. I'll read it here. The old computing is about what computers can do, whereas the new computing is about what people can do. And it's the idea that, well, the purpose of a computer really should be to do something else than to compute. And so with this in mind, and the observation of this computing technology actually now, of course, being put in the hands of so many people in the forms of these super smartphones, that we actually then, in a bout of insanity, founded a company called Smule, that in conjunction with our academic counterparts at Karma and Stanford would actually explore this idea around social music, starting with mobile devices like the iPhone. Our first experiment was actually not a musical instrument, but a sonic one. It's called the sonic lighter. And it's basically a lighter for your phone. And you can wave this around at concerts. You can run your finger through it. You can also blow it out. And I'm doing this by actually blowing into the microphone. There's actually a little software program that's actually tracking that signal. And then you can also light one phone with the other through sound. So here we go. And more than this, there's actually a globe visualization on this that showed you where else in the world people are actually recently ignited their sonic lighters. If nothing else, it's to provide you with that tinge of connection that there are other people out there who have also downloaded a virtual lighter on their iPhone and have recently used it. As technology gets more sophisticated, an interesting trend is that our awareness of it doesn't have to. In that, quote from this ageless golden Arthur C. Clarke quote that said, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." And it's with this in mind that we try to create kind of a magical experience. Ocarina was actually our first musical instrument that we created. I'm going to go ahead and just give you a quick demo of this. And this is really an exercise in designing an instrument kind of from the inside out. The exercise wasn't to say, well, we have this instrument, let's see how we can make it work on the iPhone. The exercise was to look at the iPhone and say, well, what is this thing good for? And in some sense, embrace all its capabilities as well as its limitations and see what instrument fits the profile. So that's kind of the backward design in some sense that happened. And what resulted is kind of a flute-like instrument. So you just blow into this, kind of like the sonic lighter. Use multi-touch, control the pitch. And the vibrato is kind of controlled through accelerometers. So no vibrato, vibrato. And I have to say that I'm going to play a little ditty for you. It's actually from The Legend of Zelda. It's a theme song. And the reason, and of course the reason I play this is that, well, I love The Legend of Zelda games. And it's just wonderful music. And if you think about it, the music from the video games, especially from the earlier, 8-bit, 16-bit Nintendo days, those music are probably the music those of us have either grown up with it or around it, have heard probably more than any other music in our lifetime. Like, how many times have you heard the overworld theme or the dungeon music in Zelda? And of course, it's also through a game called Ocarina of Time that I think a lot of our culture is aware that there is even an instrument called the ocarina. This actually is a real instrument. It's been around for some 12,000 years, I think. But I think still a large portion of the population still thinks that the ocarina is really a mythical, magical, hypothetical instrument that only exists in the land of Hyrule in Zelda, which is fine. And either way, here's the ocarina for the iPhone. For example. And thanks. And so far, Ocarina has been downloaded more than 5 million times. And I think the most encouraging thing about that is that most of the people who download, as far as we can tell, are not Ocarina players. And most of them, as far as we can tell, are not people who think of themselves as musicians. But yet, they like music. And here we are, we have a device that's capable of actually becoming a musical instrument that we already have with us. And in some sense, the phone then becomes a very disarming way to get music making into the hands of people who didn't know they would love doing it. And by the way, this is a score for Amazing Grace. It's an Ocarina tablature. You can find thousands of these on a website created by our users, and you can learn this in less than 20 seconds, even if you never learn how to read music. A lot of users have played Ocarina and also shared the performance on the web. This is one of our winners from our This Contest Blows Ocarina video contest. She is a piano accompaniment you can see in the background there. She's very good. You can now just see that her eyes are scanning something in front of her. I believe that's the score to O Shenandoah, presumably also on our computer screen. So this is kind of like learning to play a recorder in some sense. The iPhone is now a recorder, and the music stand is just simply another computer monitor. Another winner, this is a somewhat unexpected use of both the ocarina and the iPhone.
This is why I love the iPhone.
So she's playing Music of the Night through her nose. Apparently she's been a lifelong nose flautist, and the ocarina is simply her latest nose flute. Like all of the winners, we sent her $1,000 and a T-shirt, but only for her, we sent her a box of Kleenex for her troubles as well. A few more anecdotes. This is a blog that wondered if the red circle you see at the top left might be the northernmost recorded iPhone user. This is from a Sonic Glider ignition map. We checked there are actually 6 distinct devices on there with Sonic Glider that have been kind of on and off lighting up the Sonic Glider for like weeks. This is in 2008. So we wonder what that's about. We first thought it might be like a distress signal. But then we figured if you have like an iPhone, you have networking, you have GPS, you have all these things which you need for this to work, there are probably better ways than to light up your Sonic Glider and hope for the best. So another example, 2008, zooming into the Pasadena area on this ignition map, we see that a user actually has sent us a message. And you can see the scale of this. You can see the football stadium, kind of the size of that up there. And basically, they walked, presumably, this area and lighting up every few steps and then blowing out the Sonic Glider. And I think it goes to show is that when you guys, I think we should never underestimate the creativity of people. And all we have to do is really just set the conditions right. for people just to take flight with that. So next up is, in the realm of music, is actually Leaf Trombone World Stage. I'm going to show you just the judging part from the World Stage, which actually, the app crowdsources users to become juries and judges to judge each other's performances. So it's like a crowdsourced version of American Idol in some sense, but for an instrument called leaf trombone. And I'm going to attempt to show it here. And we're going to observe basically 3 judges who don't know each other, presumably before this, and they're going to judge together a performance that has already taken place. And the idea here is that, well, the question comes from, how can we get a computer to accurately or suitably judge a musical performance? You might hit all the notes correctly, but how does a computer know when a performance is epic or ironic or humorous? Well, maybe it's hard to do that, but why don't we use the computer to get people to judge? So that's a leaf trombone. So the judge on the left is expressing his approval with some thumbs up. And the second judge's got a lighter out. And this can just get more and more epic. You can comment. Everyone's got their lighters out now. And then this is pretty epic. And of course, they can use text comments. And in the end, you get kind of a 1 to 10 score on this. So that's the leaf trombone world stage. And it's another... So it's another experiment in socially experimenting with what we can do with music when we add all this technology, but human factors into this. Oh yeah, by the way, this is the mobile phone orchestra. We actually wear gloves with speakers attached to them on our hands to amplify the sound. And we're actually exploring music making both locally with mobile devices, but also across a wide geography. And it's from kind of building interfaces out of phones that then inspired even more instruments like the Magic Piano and the Magic Fiddle for the iPad. Here you see at the St. Lawrence String Quartet playing 4 iPads and just kind of users playing a game. One final demo I'll do for you is I Am TPain. And this is a collaboration with TPain and Nappy Boy Entertainment. And this is one of the few Smule apps, probably the only Smule app where the concept didn't really come from us. It came from TPain. He said, just put auto-tune on the iPhone. Yeah. And we said, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And what resulted is I Am TPain. And this auto-tunes your voice, but also there's a number of TPain songs you can sing to. I'm going to attempt to, well, not embarrass myself entirely, but I'm sure I will. Shawty, yeah, yeah, yeah. Snap your fingers, do your step. You can do it all by yourself, baby girl. What's your name? Let me talk to you. Let me buy you a drink. I'm TPain, you know me. Calm big music, nappy boy, ooh wee. Know the club, close at 3. What's the chance of you rolling with me? Back to the crib, show you how I live. Let's get drunk, forget what we did. Gonna buy you a drink. Oh, okay, I'll stop torturing you. Thank you. You're all very kind. I will end with this, and this is from our app that we did with Fox called Glee, and this is based on social singing. What we see here actually are our users, but they're all singing one song. This song was started less than 10 days ago by a woman in Tokyo in the wake of the tsunami and earthquake disasters. She started singing Lean On Me, and then she started trying to get people to sing with her on this app, which you can totally do. And what we're about to hear is actually the result of this. What we're hearing is actually 1,500 people from around the world, probably perfect strangers, all singing this together in support of a common cause. And these are just some of their pictures. And every day, actually, dozens, if not hundreds of new songs are being added. The mix isn't perfect because our system wasn't really designed to handle 1,500 people on a single song, but it just works. And if nothing else, I think this shows that, well, as Kim says, we're kind of all in this together. So I will end with one quote and one pondering. The quote is this: "The most profound technologies are those that disappear. They weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they're indistinguishable from it." And the pondering is this: if music is universal to humans, and also we have now this technology that is more personal, more intimate, and more connected than ever, what does that mean for music? And how can we use that to connect people around the world? Thank you. Thank you.